Hello, this is Mr. Burgess. Today we're talking about decimals. We're going to do a little review about some of the properties of decimals that we need to be aware of as we move forward in this class. So what are we talking about as far as decimal review? Well, we're going to review decimal place value, how to read a number based on where the decimal is at. And also we're going to reviewing how to round the number. Oftentimes we have to round numbers in this class. There's lots of videos such as this one that's produced by Mathantics and others that you can check out. But for now, let's just move on. So I started out with a decimal place value chart. So we've got in the decimal place value chart, you have your decimal and your number. And to the left of the decimal, you have the ones digit, the tens digit, the hundreds digit, 1,000, and so on. And it just keeps going up quite a ways, so you get bigger and bigger numbers. Behind the decimal, we have the decimal place values, and they start with the tenths, the hundredths, the 1,000ths, 10,000ths, and so on. So when we're reading a number, if we read a number, the decimal point is represented by the word and. So kind of keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of examples. For example, this number right here, if we were to read that, that would be 126 and 16 hundredths. All right, let's try another one. This one would be 12,587 and 56, and that 6 is in the thousandths column, so we would say 56 thousandths. Moving on, let's try three more. The first one, 806,562 and 123 thousandths, because the 3 and that 1, 2, 3 sequence is in the thousandths column. How about this next one? It's getting to be a big number. 1,205,026, and this time the 6 is in the 10 thousandths column. All right. Number 3, 152 and 1. That 1 is way over there. That's in the 100 thousandths column. So 152 and 100 thousandths. Unfortunately, we don't use numbers like this too frequently, but if you do, it's nice to know how to use them. All right, so let's look at these numbers. These have already been written out. Let's write these in numerical form. So the first one, we're going to have 12,600, the decimal place where the word and is, and 2/10. Okay, not too bad. How about the next one? 511 and 18 hundredths. So that's what that one would look like. All right, so let's look at a couple more things just to kind of review. If we were to ask you what digit is in the tens place, well, I've got my little pen pointed at the tens digit, so that digit happens to be a 3, of course. So what digit happens to be in the tenths place? Well, that would be in this column. No, it would be in this column. So that digit would be an 8. And then we need a digit that's in the 10 thousandths column, so that's going to be the one that's clear over here, the last digit. And so what would that be? Well, of course, that would be the digit 1. So it's important to know your columns, what digits are in them, because when it comes to rounding, that's going to be very important. And that's what we're doing next. So let's go on to rounding. So in this first little set of exercises, use the number lines to round each number to the nearest 10. So that's kind of an unusual one. So you take a look at the dot, and this is what we're doing in regular rounding as well. But what 10 is this closest to? Is this closer to 10 or 20? Well, of course, it's closer to 20. How about this one? Well, that's already at 50, so the closest 10 to that number is 50. How about this one? Well, this one's just a little bit to the right of 50 right here. So the closest 10 that it is to is 50 itself. And then this last one, well, actually, we got two more. This one right here, 27. What 10 is that closest to? Well, you can just tell by graphically looking at it. It's closer to 30 than it is to 20. And then the last one, of course, is the closest 10 to that dot is 80. Now, when we're rounding other numbers, we may not be rounding to the nearest 10. We may be rounding to the nearest tenth or nearest whole number. So when we're rounding, the first thing you do is find the digit that you're rounding to and either circle it or underline it or highlight it. Check the neighbor to the right. So we look at the number just to the right of the one we're rounding to, and if that number is 4 or less, then we let the one that we circled rest and stay the same. If the number to the right of the number we're rounding is 5 or more, we add 1 to the number that we circle or underlined. So let's look at this first one. In this case, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So in that case, we look at the 5. It's 4 or bigger, so that 8 right there is going to become, when we round, it's going to become a 9. Oh, we better pick a different color here. So this would become a 9, and the rest of this would drop off. How about this one, where we're going to round to the nearest 10,000th? Well, we're rounded to that 9. This 2 is not 5 or bigger, so we're going to just cross that off. So that would be your number rounded to the nearest 10,000th. This next one, rounding to the nearest whole number. Well, here's your digits that you're rounding. You look to the right of it, even though you're looking beyond the decimal. There's an 8 there. That means we're going to have to add 1 to the 5 and make that a 6. So the nearest whole number on that one is just 126. All right, that's not looking too bad. Let's try one more here. Round to the nearest tenth. So we're rounding that one to this digit right here. The number behind it is a 2. So we're going to let it rest. So we'll just have 89.56. Next one, rounding to the nearest 10,000th. Well, there's actually nothing after that digit, which is the 10,000th digits. So that is our answer right there. Rounding to the nearest whole number. So we're going to round to this one. Oh, this is a 5 or bigger, so that means we got to round that 9 up to a 10. Ooh, that's kind of unusual. So that's going to leave a 0 in that column, and we're going to move the 1 from the 10 over to that 8, and that's going to make that a 90. So now let's think about that, rounding to the nearest whole number. Well, you've got 89.5627. So that means that this number is closer to 90 than it is to 89. And that's why we ended up with a 90. All right, a couple more and we'll be ready to move on. So round this one to the nearest hundredth. So I've got that tenths. There's the hundredths column. There's nothing behind it, just a 0. So that's going to just leave us 118.38. This one round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that's the tenths column. So that's going to go up by 1 because it's got a number that's 5 or bigger. So we're going to end up with 90.7. I'm liking this. This looks pretty easy. Round this one to the nearest tenth. Well, this is a 4 or smaller, so we're going to let that 5 rest according to our instructions. So 8.5. Round to the nearest whole number. All right, so is this number closer to 99 or 100? Well, since this is beyond 0.5, that means this number, the nearest whole number this is closest to is 100. All right, let's just do one real-world problem here. Peter traveled 15.789 kilometers in his car. Round this number to the nearest hundredth of a kilometer. Well, that 8 is in the hundredths column. There's a number that's 5 or bigger to the right of it, so that 8 is going to become a 9. So we'll end up with 15.79 kilometers. And it's important if we're doing a problem like this to make sure you include the units. All right, 1 or 2 more examples. If you were to find the number 626 on a number line, it would be located between which two numbers? Well, we notice right now that it can't be A because these two numbers are both less than 6.26. Same with B, they're both less than 6.26. This one is getting closer, but we want a number that it's in between, and this number happens to be right on 6.26. So that can't be in between those two. And this last one, sure enough, 6.26 is between 6.2 and 6.3. Okay, so we've done that one. All right, so that's a little bit of review on rounding. Good luck on your assignment today. Thank you.